and here we go.
There's the deluge. Here's ignition.
Roger roll, Atlantic. Doubling up.
Did it just do a Kerbal?
Back to the moon and beyond.
Put that in the big bag, Gino.
Back at home, we all have a lot of work to do, but from here, it sure looks like a perfect world.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
We did have an observation.
343 unfolds to go.
It's orange.
Water towers can fly!
Bingo! Right in the center.
Where's Jacqueline? There it is!
That was surreal.
That's not what we want to see.
No!
Oh my god.
Yikes, you bet. We don't need any more of these.
Breaking news, everybody. This is not your ordinary Starlink. More breaking news. The producer pressed the wrong button. But, all things considered, you are taking a live look right now at Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, where this is not a Starlink mission. In fact, SpaceX is getting ready to launch GPS-3 Space Vehicle 10, also known as GPS III-8. I am Sawyer Rosenstein. I will be your host for this early morning broadcast, but as always, I am not alone. Joining me on commentary today is Mr. Max Evans. Max, how's it going?
Good morning, everybody. And yes, it is technically morning now, being past midnight now, nearly 2 a.m. local time here on the east coast of Florida. We have some clear skies over our heads, but some blustery conditions this evening. But nonetheless, Falcon 9 is poised to go to space. And it's been a while since we've seen a Falcon 9 in the pad, to be honest with you. But of course, being at this time of night, it is very on brand. But we are glad to be here.
Absolutely. These late night GPSs do be hitting different, I guess.
Indeed.
And Max is over there on the KSC side of things, and then over on the Space Force side of things is D-Wise getting us some views from the other sides with some really close-up views, so expect those coming shortly. And then pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, and calling the breaking news today is Jay Keegan. He said it's okay, I can give him cred for that, so that's why I'm doing it, don't worry.
That was honestly amazing. Like, I was watching that in the preview, and I was like, you know what? Like, I needed that little pick me up. That was pretty funny.
Oh yeah, it's a great way to wake up. And so, as always, if you have any questions, you can tag us at NASA Spaceflight or at NSF, and will appear in the back channel that we have here, this little chat program we've got, so we can see everything that's happening. But this is, as we mentioned, a very interesting one because it's not Starlink. This is another GPS part of the Global Positioning Satellite Network. This is the final of the GPS-3 series. And while this is GPS-3 Space Vehicle 10, the official mission designation is also GPS-3-8 because numbers, why do they matter? Apparently, according to SpaceX and the US government, they don't. But this will be, as mentioned, the final one in GPS-3 before they move on to the GPS-3F, which stands for follow-on, which will be coming up after these. But this will be the last one in a series of active satellites, as well as a bunch of backups that they currently have in orbit. In terms of, there it is, in fact, there is the GPS satellite. And this satellite has done a bunch of bouncing around. So this satellite was originally going to be launching on Falcon, and then as part of a swap, they were going to move one of the flights from Vulcan over to Falcon 9, and instead this one was then going to switch over to Vulcan. However, if you've been following ULA's issues that they've been having, of course, there was the nozzle incident that occurred on the most recent the most recent U.S. Space Force mission that they flew, and so this satellite bounced back over to Falcon Heavy. This will mark the fourth GPS satellite that was originally scheduled to launch on Vulcan, now flying on Falcon. And speaking of flying on Falcon, Max, which Falcon are we looking at?
Yeah, I couldn't help but cringe a little bit when you were saying the payloads that have since swapped from Vulcan. You know, as much as it does kind of pain us to say that, but I mean, It makes for good content, I guess, but nonetheless, we do wish Falcon was having a better time. But nonetheless, Falcon 9 is over at Pad 40, and the booster in question today, at least in terms of the first stage, is booster B1095. And this mission will be its 7th and its first non-Starlink mission. And in terms of flight history, well, I just said it. It has 6 previous Starlink missions ahead of it, this being the first non-Starlink one and the first away or outside of low Earth orbit, in this case heading to a medium Earth orbit, heading towards the northeast at around a 53-degree inclination, I believe it is, heading northeast towards the coast of the Bahamas, the Carolinas, and Virginia, and of the sorts. Although being at the time of morning it is, the appearance of a jellyfish is unlikely, or I should say impossible, actually, because the sun isn't even close to being up yet. But nonetheless, you should still see or should have some visibility of the second stage plume if you're in the right area and if the weather is good enough in terms of skies being clear. But nonetheless, this vehicle it should also be heading downrange the first stage in terms of my brain is all over the place, folks. I do apologize. The first stage recovery vessel, just read the instructions, is stationed about 600 kilometers or so downrange to hopefully recover this booster about 8.5 minutes into flight. And then recovering the fairings today on today's mission, I believe, is Bob. Yes, it is Bob indeed, stationed about 100 kilometers farther. So a little bit farther downrange than what we're used to with Starlink, but the mission parameters this time are much different as well. As you can also see, the gray mission extension kit stripe there on the second stage of Falcon 9, which keeps the RP-1 at a warmer temperature and more easily usable for longer duration missions. Because of course, as you can see in this beautiful shot here, that gray stripe above the black interstage there on the first stage is meant to keep the RP-1 or kerosene at a warm enough temperature in space to use for a prolonged period of time. Because of course, space can either be very hot or very cold, and whether or not you are facing the sun or not is heavily dictates what temperatures you are going to be facing, at least when you're in the sun. So with in this case, because Falcon is heading to a medium Earth orbit at a much higher altitude than what we're used to, being I want to say it's around 2,000 to 3,000 kilometers altitude. I could be wrong on that or a bit off. But nonetheless, it takes a bit longer to get there, and the propellant on board does not like to be sitting around for a long time. But this mission extension kit does help to preserve the longevity of the RP-1 on the second stage as well. So that is why you see the gray stripe on Falcon 9's. I keep wanting to say Glenn Stage 2. I don't know why, or GS2, or how about FS2 or Falcon Stage 2? How about that? But yeah, that's why this mission is pretty unique. We don't see it that often, maybe a handful of times a year, depending on what the mission parameters are. But also pretty neat to see the American flag and the Freedom 250 logo there on the upper side of the second stage as well, below the fairings. I think it's a pretty cool touch. As you can see from this beautiful video shot from SpaceX, I want to say in the last couple of days. Over at Pad 40, but nonetheless, it is a beautiful thing to see. But also, we are glad to be out here just for a mission in general. I mean, it has been a very busy month, but we can't get enough. Like these missions are like a drug to us. Like we're like slapping our arms, like, come on, we need more, give us more. But we should have more coming up also towards the end of the month now. Oh my God, it's already the freaking 21st. Sawyer, it's been 3 weeks since Artemis 2 launched.
Oh my God,
3 weeks.
No.
Wow.
Yeah,
launched on the first. Oh my God.
Wow, where is time going?
I know.
Anyway, yeah. Hopefully you call it GS2. Hopefully it has a better outcome than Glenn Stage 2 did on its most recent flight. We'll say that.
Oof.
Yeah, that was a bit of a rough one, and we could talk about that later. But
Yeah.
In regards to this mission, a couple fun facts. This one will be landing on Just Read the Instructions, and it will have landed 7 times out of 7 on Just Read the Instructions, making that the longest active streak of a SpaceX booster landing on the same drone ship consecutively, if that makes sense. Every other drone ship in between there every other booster in between there has maybe landed on a shortfall of gravitas and then over to Just Read the Instructions. No, the 7 straight. Pretty wild. And you can see there's a view over from the Space Force side of things, including one of those payload buildings over to the left there.
I believe that is actually where this payload was processed. This is the PPF, or payload processing facility, that SpaceX utilizes on the Space Force side. It's in very close proximity to Pad 40, which makes it very, very convenient for payloads like this, either for the Space Force or whoever else, and also commercial partners as well. The Starlink satellites are processed and encapsulated over in Hangar X2, and that is why we have seen them rolling by the VAB here on their way to Pad 40 or 39A, but nowhere else. We do occasionally see payloads that have come over from Titusville at times as well. No, you know what? Actually, I think this one actually came over from Titusville as well. I think our own Julia Bergeron posted about this fairing coming over the causeway over on Highway 405 coming in. There we go. There's actually a picture of it. So yes, this is one of the rare payloads that is actually processed at the Astrotech facility here in Titusville. And while we don't have really any insight as to when they move, when they do move and they're on the public road, obviously this is when we see views like this. So a pretty rare and unique treat to see a payload on the move like this, especially of the GPS variety.
Yeah, you're not kidding. And it also allows us to see the fairing halves and get an insight onto those, which we have some pretty young fairing halves. This is a pretty new-ish mission. A booster on its 7th flight, and the fairing halves have flown. One is on its 2nd flight, and the other is on its 3rd flight. In fact, one of them previously flew on the last GPS-3 mission, SV09. So lots of fun facts for this mission. We also keep talking about the names. So we mentioned that this is GPS-3, Space Vehicle 10 launch. They also call this GPS III-8. There's a couple other names for it as well. One of them, they gave it a sort of mission designation on the official SpaceX patch for it. They've had different ones for all of them. So one of them was Rapid Response Trailblazer, Expedited Delivery to Orbit, Lima Foxtrot Gulf, and this one as ASAP as possible. Yeah, they keep going with the names there. So that's the 3rd naming convention of it, and there's a 4th as well. The spacecraft is also named Hedy Lamarr, which for those of you who like Blazing Saddles, I have not been able to stop saying that's Headley all day. But yes, this was named after the Austrian-American actress who basically created the patent for frequency hopping that laid the groundwork for modern secure communications, similar to what is used on these GPS missions. And another fun fact, this mission will also have a new addition to it that the other GPS-3 satellites did not. Remember how we were getting some of the awesome video and footage and things from Artemis that was done over that optical link and that kind of laser communication? Well, this will be the first GPS satellite in medium Earth orbit to have the same feature attached to it, with speed supposedly up to 100 gigs. So, yeah, how do I get that hooked up to my house, please?
Yeah, that's very fast.
Oh, yeah. Let's see here. Yes, coming up now on 43-ish minutes to go for this launch now. Again, you can tag us at NASA Spaceflight or at NSF if you have any questions. Let's see. Going through some things here. Glenn Matthews was saying, is this the 601st Falcon launch? I see where you're getting confused there a bit. This is not the 601st. The other launch that you saw out of Vandenberg was the 600th Starlink mission. This is SpaceX's 657th overall. I believe it was 600 for, if I'm remembering that rightly. I could be mistaken on that, but this is the 629th orbital flight of Falcon 9 and the 657th overall. And amazingly, the 48th of the year, as we are still not even a full 4 months into the year. This will be the 8th of the month, which is kind of low for SpaceX. And 92nd orbital launch of the year. And this will be the 323rd from Space Launch Complex 40, with LC-39A now being put on pause for a bit, at least for Falcon 9s. But it is getting geared up, Max, for another launch, hopefully before the end of this month.
It sure is, and actually, hopefully, in just under a week's time as well. So, after about a year and a half break, I mean, Falcon Heavy loves to have these breaks in between missions sometimes. It's kind of funny. Um, but and hopefully just under a week's time, we have the Viasat 3F3 mission coming up from LC-39A. And of course, as I just mentioned, from Falcon Heavy. We haven't seen that rocket since NASA and SpaceX launched the Europa Clipper mission way back in October of 2024, literally one day after Starship Flight 5, which was the first ever catch of a super heavy booster. And a lot of our team wasn't here for that because we were all in Starbase for that. That was a rather big mission. But this is, I believe, the first Falcon Heavy mission that D or I would have seen since the GOES U mission almost 2 bleeding years ago. Good grief. That is kind of scary to think about. But as far as we are aware now, they will be recovering both side cores as well, one going to the LZ over at Pad 40 and the other at LZ2, closer to where SpaceX used to have both LZ1 and LZ2, the classic LZs right next to each other. But yeah, that should be coming up pretty soon. And honestly, we have been itching to see a mission from 39A for quite a while. We have a lot better access to it in terms of cameras, and we are also a lot closer to it. And it's also it's a lot prettier, dare I say, than Pad 40, if I may say so. So we have that coming up to look forward to, and hopefully the first launch of Starship from this exact pad as well by the end of the year. So lots picking up for Pad A in the future, but at the moment she is pretty dormant, Sawyer.
Yeah, 40 is great at getting the job done. 39A has that sort of elegance to it. Also, what do you mean just U and D? I was there at Goes U, and I'll be there when this launches too.
I'm not gonna lie, Sawyer, I don't remember that far. I'm sorry.
It was 2024. I've been working for NSF for almost 4 years.
Bruh, I had just gotten back from New Zealand. My body clock was all kinds of messed up.
Fair enough. But yes, the Florida Cape team will be out in force, don't worry, for Falcon Heavy, which there's also potentially an Atlas on the same day. So it's going to be exciting times still coming up this month, even if Slick 40 has been relatively quiet up to this point. But we are getting to that point in the countdown where things are going to start picking up, at least for tonight's launch. So we are now under 40 minutes to go, and hopefully they will give the go for propellant load in the next 90 seconds or so. Of course, we won't know that because we don't actually get to hear their calls, and even if we did, there's nothing to hear as they do it all with buttons on their consoles. But if they do give that go, then they will start loading in the propellant at T-minus 35 minutes, beginning with the RP-1, the rocket propellant 1, as Max was talking about earlier, that kerosene, as well as the liquid oxygen into Stage 1. Meanwhile, Stage 2 will just be getting that RP-1 load. That will continue until about T-minus 20 minutes and 20 seconds, at which point they will then see the best vent, as we call it, which is the LOX chilldown. And then 4 minutes after that, that will end, and that will mark the start of liquid oxygen load into Stage 2. And as Max pointed out, that mission extension stripe there on the second stage of this Falcon 9, because this will be going to a medium Earth orbit, and we'll have about an hour and 3 minutes between when it launches and when they refire that second stage engine, of course, being a little higher than we're used to seeing for Starlink launches, where those are a couple 100 kilometers in altitude versus a couple 1,000 kilometers in altitude on this flight. So that is where we are at on this mission. And we are also going to thank some people here real quick. Pudini. Chris Berg in the chat was right. You probably didn't have to even pay money for it, but if Sawyer and our Max can do a good That's Hedy rendition, this will be money well spent. Have you seen Blazing Saddles?
I'm going to be honest with you, Sawyer, I have not.
It definitely has some references that haven't aged well, but it is a fantastic film. If you view it from the lens of when it was released. But yes, because the joke is the character's name is Hedy Lamarr. And so, or Hedley Lamarr. So everyone goes, oh, that's Hedy Lamarr. And he goes, that's Hedley. Hopefully that was good for you, Pudini. But yes, I'll be making that reference a lot. Patrick Dugan saying, what are the odds of a Falcon Atlas doubleheader? Max, what do you think?
I mean, as things are stacking up right now, pretty high. As far as we can tell, the targeted launch window for Falcon Heavy is around 10:20 a.m. in the morning. And I think Atlas would be around 8:30 p.m. So not quite 12 hours apart, but about maybe 9 to 10 hours there apart from each other. So that they won't be exactly be breathing down each other's necks, but it is going to be really cool to see nonetheless. Because something about Falcon Heavy loving like just Falcon Heavy loves to launch the day another rocket is going to launch. I mean, I think it's occurred 3 times already where Falcon Heavy has launched, and then either a Starlink or some other mission has preceded it within hours afterwards. And I think this mission will be no different. Although this time it'll be Atlas instead of Falcon 9 that follows in suit. So don't know what it is. It just Falcon Heavy loves double headers.
I mean, you got the double landing, double header. I mean, I'm all for it though. By the way, I do want to
100%.
mention earlier that 600 number, that was 600 recoveries of a Falcon 9 booster. So that was the confusion with the 601st and everything. But one thing that we're not confused about is that propellant load is indeed about to begin. So normally we were saying we don't really get that confirmation normally, but in this case we did via the SpaceX X account, saying propellant load is about to begin and weather is 90% favorable for today's Falcon 9 launch of the GPS III-8 mission to medium Earth orbit. And that is what we like to hear. In fact, the weather forecast, 90% favorable. The only concerns were the cumulus cloud rule and the thick cloud rule. But Max, it sounds like that's not really an issue tonight.
No, not at all. I see plenty of stars overhead, and I do see some puffy clouds to my south, but really it's just mildly inconvenient stuff. Nothing to be super worried about in terms of either precipitation or being thick enough to cause any sort of lightning when or if Falcon decides to fly through it. One thing that is kind of annoying, though, as you can probably hear through my microphone at times, is the wind and also through the camera shake as well on my tracker here. It is a bit breezy tonight, which is mildly annoying, and it has been pretty windy here for the last month or so. It's one of those like mildly annoying things where you can't help it, but it's still you just want it to go away, especially at this time of the morning where the weather should be a lot more stable. But yeah, in terms of launch weather overall tonight, it is looking really, really good. As we haven't heard anything so far in terms of being cautious with the winds, Falcon 9 is one of the more vulnerable rockets when it comes to wind, particularly if the booster is coming back to land in fighting those winds, of course, because it'll weigh a lot less with the amount of propellant that is not in it at that point, and therefore being a lot more vulnerable to crosswinds and maybe or may not being able to correct for those with either the grid fins or the engines. So. But again, so far we haven't heard any concern about the winds themselves. It is just mildly annoying for us here on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen them launch in almost 40-mile-an-hour winds and it not be an issue. So I think we're going to be okay tonight with forecasted of about 15 to 25 miles per hour at the 200-foot level over at Slick 40. This was, again, originally supposed to launch yesterday, but it seemed like the recovery weather was a bit rough. It has been quite stormy here the last couple days in Florida, so some of that kind of continuing offshore, and things looking much calmer this time for Just Read the Instructions, ready to have this booster land atop it, hopefully, in about 40 minutes from now. My 99 randomness, and a bunch of people have been asking, what's the deal with those green lights? Max, do we know what those green lights over by the payload processing facility over there are?
I think those just indicate what state the building is in, whether it is safe to be around or mildly cautious, or if you should not enter at all. Because remember, with the spacecraft that they're handling in there, more often than not, utilize hypergolic propellants to use use hypergolic propellants for their thrusters and control systems, which are of course extremely toxic for us humans. You do not want to be around those, whether you are fueling a vehicle or even when the payload is fueled already. You do not want to be around that. And I think when they are loading a vehicle with said hypergols, I think that is when the lights will either turn yellow or red. But also when they are moving the satellite around onto the payload adapter or trying to enclose it in the fairings, whenever there's any large hardware moving, the color of those lights will change to indicate what safety level the facility is at. I think that's what that means, and of course, green being the most safe state the building could possibly be in right now. Although we cannot just walk over there and waltz in the door and see what they're up to. We that is not on the table, and I do not recommend anyone ever try that. But yeah, those lights are always on, either green, yellow, or red. But obviously, in this case, the building, I presume, is empty of all other payloads, and nothing requiring safing operations is going on. So they are currently flashing green.
And it is very likely that you'll still see cars and things driving around because those are all within the safe zone there. Part of it is just the camera perspective. Also, the keep out area is a little over a mile, so it's not like it's super far away. Cars can still get relatively close to the pad at that point.
Oh yeah, and I think it also varies depending on the payloads that Falcon 9 is carrying. There are some occasions where the keep out zone for Falcon is only half a mile, and then there are occasions where it's 1 or 1.5 miles. And in this case, I think, as you were just saying, Sawyer, it's about 1.1 miles. It all depends on the flight history of the booster flying, the payload on board. There are a whole bunch of factors in it, and especially if the booster is coming back to Pad 40 as well. As you can see, key example right there, car going through the frame from right to left there on the bottom. So yeah, I think it's all a matter of what is on board Falcon and how long or how used the Falcon 9 booster is. But actually, Sawyer, I think I can see frost now building up on the LOX tank of Falcon 9 now from my angle.
There we go. There is a view from your angle, and yes, that is definitely a frost line starting to form right by the bushes there. So that means that Falcon 9 is fueling, and as their ex-post pointed out, they are indeed going for it, and they are committed to this T0. So that means that in 30 minutes and 13 seconds, it either will launch or it will not. It cannot push any farther. Not that it had a large window to begin with today. This one, I believe, was only about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I see a bunch of people posting quotes from Blazing Saddles. Just be careful which ones you post, because we try and keep chat on the family.
That's amazing.
Side. So I've seen a couple that didn't make it through the moderation just because of that, but I appreciate the people making the reference for Hedy Lamarr.
Behave yourselves, children. Behave yourselves.
I'm having to bite my tongue because some of the quotes, again, it's my all-time favorite movie. Shout out to my dad if he's watching too.
It's almost like, what's worse, this, like that, or Airplane?
I mean, Airplane is a kid's movie in comparison to some of the quotes, but yeah.
Fair, yes.
Oh boy, I am serious, and don't call me Shirley. Continuing along here.
Oh my God.
It's one of the few things I can quote right now, but moving on, under 30 minutes to go now from the launch of this, the final in the GPS-3 series of global positioning satellite launches. Again, this GPS-3 SV10 / GPS-3-8 / as ASAP as possible / Hedy Lamarr. So, take your pick on the name that you wish to call it, but it is a GPS satellite heading to medium Earth orbit, and this is one where, again, even though it is for the United States Space Force, there are different parts to it. There is a military portion to it and a civilian portion to it. So that is, of course, the military using it for combat purposes, and civilians using it when you pull up Google Maps or Apple Maps. I guess depending on which, if you get the good or the bad GPS satellite, is how well your tracking goes here, at least in the United States side. Let's see. We joked earlier about the second stage. You mistakenly called it Glenn Stage 2, GS2, versus the upper stage here of Falcon 9. Warrior Princess was wondering, I feel like we have some time. We might as well discuss it. What happened during the last New Glenn launch? Unfortunately, I missed it, they said. The satellite didn't quite make it to its planned orbit, Mags.
No, it was dropped off at a lower altitude than intended by Blue Origin and AST Space Mobile. Even though the satellite itself has its own onboard ion thrusters, it was dropped off way too low by Glenn Stage 2, and at a slower velocity as well. It sounds like one or both of the BE3U engines on GS2 in this case had something go wrong and was unable to produce sufficient thrust, therefore the stage and the satellite not getting to where they needed to go. GS1 or Glenn Stage 1 performed flawlessly as far as we could tell and came in for a successful landing aboard Jacqueline. It should be back into port hopefully this week at some point. I mean, it should be this week, right? It shouldn't take that long to get back here. But yeah, as you can see from the statement here from Dave Limp, in the key quote, with the key line here being, early data suggests that on our second GS2 burn, one of the BE3U engines didn't produce sufficient thrust to reach our targeted orbit. So yeah, one of the BE3U engines on GS2 did not perform well enough, or at all, depending on what happened. We don't know. Don't know if we don't know if it blew up or if it just flat out did not perform as well as they wanted to. But as far as we can tell right now, both AST Space Mobile and Blue expect the payload to re-enter at some point because of how low of a perigee was in the orbit. I think it was around 200 kilometers or so, or maybe even lower. But at that point, the orbit
or
would
160.
Yeah, so even worse. So at that point, the orbit would decay rather quickly, and as you are skimming the upper atmosphere at that point, and should be re-entering at some point in the near future, which is kind of concerning, because both the satellite itself and Glenn Stage 2 are not small pieces of hardware, right? Don't exactly know where or when they are both going to re-enter the atmosphere or where they're going to come down, which is kind of concerning, because again, they are in pretty large pieces of hardware. Statement here from Jonathan McDowell. Oh, I'm seeing the back channel. Oops.
Yeah.
It's a post. But apparently, Jonathan McDowell, the orbital police himself, has said that the Space Force has issued a decay notice for Bluebird 7, saying it re-entered on April 20th with no further details. Okay, so that was yesterday. Almost today, actually. But also, I think that brings up a unique point given the size of the payload and Glenn Stage 2 itself as to why SpaceX has intentionally not targeted orbit for Starship to this point, right? Because if you lose control over a piece of hardware as big as ship, that means bad news for a lot of people. So that is a key example, or a prime example of why SpaceX has chosen their current flight paths so far. So it's unfortunate for Blue Origin and unfortunate for New Glenn. Hopefully that they can get this figured out and get them flying again within the next 2 or 3 months with whatever they want coming up next on their manifest. But yeah, certainly not something we expected from them. I think at this point, especially considering the fact that the BE3s or the BE3Us on GS2, but BE3s on New Shepard, which was their suborbital rocket launching from West Texas, they have plenty of experience lighting it and relighting that engine, albeit on much slower speeds and much different flight paths. But they still have a lot more experience with that engine than they do with the BE4s. So if there was going to be a failure with New Glenn, I didn't think it was going to be with GS2 Sawyer.
Yeah, same. Especially, they had a near perfect record, at least in flight, with the BE3s, with one exception of a mission, but to prove the abort capabilities worked on that capsule. But otherwise, yeah, it was a bit surprising to see that, especially knowing the push to get the lunar lander program up and running and get Blue Moon Mark 1 launched at some point this year as well.
Yep.
So hopefully they figure out what it is. Of course, the FAA is investigating, which means hopefully we will get to see the results of that investigation once it is complete, and we'll know what happened and what they're doing to fix it. All right, let's get back to more of your questions here. This is one from Ninja Guy Dan. It's a great question. Is there anything you can use to protect yourself from the grumpy gators that woken up by the launches? Is there like a bear spray for gators? Montana boy asking Florida questions here. Max?
I think, you could just run away, because even though gators can be quick in small bursts, if you just run in a diagonal line compared to its or even perpendicular to where it's coming at you quickly, you can get away pretty easily. They're not. You can certainly outrun them, but the thing is, if they sneak up on you and you don't see it coming, you could be in for a bad time. But that being said, gators more often than not want nothing to do with you unless you really intrude on their space and make them angry. So I really don't. And I don't expect to have any issue with a gator here at KSC. As much as we hear them after a launch, I rarely ever actually see them. And at least here at the press site, I have actually yet to see any out of the water here. So they are around, but they want nothing to do with people, right? So I think either run away or have a big stick to just poke it away from. I think that is the best piece of advice I can give you. But also, do not get too close if you are not an expert with these animals. That's the best piece of advice that I can give you.
Says the person who regularly posts pictures of themselves hanging out with the swamp puppies.
I mean, I'm no expert. I'm not an expert. I am not a biologist. I am not an expert in crocodilians. But alligators are, to me, I look at alligators like puppies or dogs, right? Like that's just they're adorable to me. And so I I know how to read them for the most part, just in terms of body language and how they behave, but that's just me. Like this is not advice. This is not advice by any stretch of the imagination. By any means. I'm being a professional idiot. So do not please don't copy me.
I like that. Yeah, the only people I know besides you that are real big fans of gators usually have it as on their purse or their shoes or something like that. So
No, I prefer them alive.
yeah, no, that they can be, and yeah, you will sometimes hear them hissing and getting angry at the launches out there, but usually they stay pretty calm and quiet, and or at least don't charge at you during a launch. Sure, they'll get upset, but they're not going to start going, "Oh, I'm going to run after you because I hear a rocket sound." So don't worry, Ninja Guy Dan, and anyone else that's out there watching, you're safe. Because I saw someone else saying, "Oh yeah, I see them all the time," or "I saw them in one of the canals when I was out there at the Cape." Yeah. Don't worry about seeing those. Worry about seeing this on your screen right now, and that is the T-minus 20-minute, 20-second vent. So we call it here the best vent, or as it's also known as, the LOX chill down beginning. So with that, the RP-1, the Rocket Propellant 1 on stage 2 is fully loaded, and now they are preparing the lines to start loading in the liquid oxygen on stage 2. They are thermally conditioning it, so when that super chilled liquid oxygen runs through it, you don't get any cracks or fissures or anything that could cause problems with the lines, and it allows the super chilled propellants to go into the rocket safely despite it being very warm outside here in Florida. That will continue for about 4 minutes, and once we hit the T-minus 16-minute mark, that will hopefully stop, and once it does, that should mean that LOX load has begun on stage 2. And then, meanwhile, stage 1 continuing to get its propellants loaded, both the LOX and RP-1 continuing to load onto the booster. Let's see here. I see some people talking about my my transitions there with the gator stories and now into that. But anyway, 19 minutes to go here. Let's get some more questions here going. Here's one from Flippers who was asking earlier, will there be a jellyfish max?
Unfortunately, not for us here tonight, nor anyone on the east coast of the U.S. It's just the wrong time of night. I mean, it'll be almost 3 o'clock in the morning, and the sun won't even begin to rise until around 7 o'clock in the morning. So still many, many hours away, but if you are across the ocean, well, what is UK time? Is it +5 or +6? I can't remember. I think it's
I think it's
+5.
+5 at the moment with
Okay,
daylight
so
saving.
it'll already be daylight then in the UK. So, yeah, and even for those in the UK hoping to see Falcon 9 deorbit or something of the sort, I think it'll be too late in the day. But in terms of us here in the US, I do not believe there's going to be a chance for one of those tonight because the moon has already set and it's also just a crescent, so there isn't even a chance of a moon jelly. So we are just getting our standard nighttime visuals here tonight. But that being said, we should still have a pretty good visibility of Falcon 9's upper stage plume, though, because we can always see a bit more of it, especially as we get close to fairing separation and we see them push away. So none of that tonight. So we are just getting our standard nighttime visuals.
Yeah, our resident European on this stream, Jay Keegan, saying too bright. It's already light outside. So, yeah, that answers that. And I saw someone saying UTC -4, whatever the time is. It's a little too light out there. Anyway, this is a good question. Elliot asking here, where is the SpaceX Launch Control Center located at the Cape? I know the old one used to be by the Sand Space Center. Has it moved since then? And for those who have seen the famous Falcon Heavy video where Elon runs outside from the control room to see the landing, that's the old one that was located near Sands. Where's the new one, Max?
It's over at Hangar X here at the Kennedy Space Center. So they have currently two big facilities over at Roberts Road, Hangar X and Hangar X2. And Hangar X2, I believe, is where they manufacture the Starship TPS tiles, and also where they enclose and group the Starlink the Starlink satellites for missions here on the East Coast. But the Hangar X is mostly used for Falcon 9 first stage refurbishment, and then there's also a control room there as well, and that is where launch control is, and all of the launch operations happen there. They also used to utilize, I think it was firing room 2 here at the Kennedy Space Center when they were utilizing LC-39A for other missions, and especially crewed missions. I believe it was the Nat Geo documentary about DM2, where we see Elon and a bunch of the launch team in firing room 2 talking about the scrub when that happened. So at one point in time, they had, I think, 3 or 4 different ones. So they had the one by Sands, they had firing room. I think it was 2. I could be wrong. I think it was 2. And then they also had, I believe, Hangar AE was a sort of control room there on the Space Force side as well. But since Hangar X was constructed and a whole bunch of operations have been moved there, that is where all of launch control is right now. And with it being their very own space, I believe it is going to stay that way for quite a long time. And also, that is where launch control is going to be for Falcon Heavy, and I also presume for Starship as well.
Yep, you can see there, this is an image from one of those crew launches from inside the new launch control center over at Roberts Road in that area. That's cool. I haven't actually seen that photo. But yeah, it's less cool, I think, than the launch control center because there's not as many windows, but that's just me personally.
Yeah, I'd have to agree on that one.
Oron, thank you for becoming a Pad Rat member. Very much appreciate that. And now we are under 15 minutes to go until the launch. Again, this is GPS-3, Space Vehicle 10, the final launch of the GPS-3 series before they move on to GPS-3F, which is follow-on to the original GPS-3 missions. This satellite was originally supposed to launch aboard a ULA Vulcan rocket, but was moved following the recent anomaly that they had with the most recent Vulcan flight, where a nozzle liberation event occurred. An observation was made of that. Basically, the part of the nozzle flew off mid-flight, which turns out Space Force wasn't a fan of, even though the payload did make it to its intended orbit. So this vehicle, which was originally going to launch on Falcon 9, but was then swapped to Vulcan in sort of a payload exchange while they were getting Vulcan ready. After that anomaly, it was switched back to Falcon 9, and this will mark the 4th GPS satellite mission that was originally scheduled to launch on Vulcan that has instead launched on Falcon 9, which I know we were talking about that earlier in the show. It's a shame because the whole point of this was to have the multiple providers and to be able to fire them off quickly, because you could have Atlas launch, or Vulcan launch one and then Falcon launch one.
And also just thinking about it now, it's a bit upsetting because Vulcan being grounded for potentially the rest of the year, depending on what they want to fly. Because I don't think Space Force is very eager to fly on Vulcan anytime soon. So I know they have Kuiper missions lined up on Vulcan still. That is where a majority of Vulcan's launch contracts actually are right now still. But it's currently grounded due to its SRB issue. And also, New Glenn having its own issues as well on only its 3rd flight and its first commercially beyond NASA. a bit of a shame, but I know these rockets are still very, very early in their lifespan, especially New Glenn. So I have no doubt that teams at both companies are going to get their stuff figured out. Just a shame to have them have these issues so close together, but I think New Glenn is the more pressing one, with it playing a bigger part in the HLS program.
Exactly. And as of now, currently, the GPS 3F satellites, so SV11 launch, is scheduled to launch aboard a Vulcan VC2S. So with 2 solid rocket boosters on it. So we will have to see what ends up happening with that. But as of now, it is scheduled to still launch on Vulcan, as this, again, marking the final of the GPS 3 missions. And as we were pointing out earlier, this one does have a unique thing that the other GPS 3 satellites did not have, and that was an optical link down to the ground. So, kind of like we had with Artemis, where they were using that the light link, the kind of laser link that they had between the spacecraft and Earth for some of those high rate downloads. Well, this has it as well, with speeds and data rates capable of up to 100 gigs per second. So the long-term goal is to be able to have these optical crosslinks that allow the entire GPS constellation to be updated simultaneously from a single ground station, as opposed to the current radio frequency architecture that they use. You can see the photo of it as it was getting ready to be encapsulated inside the fairings for this mission, of which these fairings are on the newer side here. These fairings have flown 2 and 3 times, or this will be their second and third flights, respectively. So SN 240-2 and 241-3, with 241 having previously flown on the last GPS 3 mission. That was SV09. Someone random saying at tips, random with the $5 tip at tips.nasaspaceflight.com saying Vulcan anomaly. I think you mean observation. Yes, I had to correct myself there to observation. As we're used to hearing in the intro there as well, we had an observation. But I gotta say, it's I guess would you call what we saw the other day then with not making orbit New Glenn, that's more than an observation. That's an anomaly, right?
I would classify that as a big whoopsie of sorts, regardless.
Yeah, bit of a big whoopsie, but one positive to that mission at least is, hey, the booster landed. So that's something cool. And in fact, if you want to celebrate it, we actually have some new merch at shop.nasaspaceflight.com to celebrate it. And from our intro there, you heard Ryan Caton going, "Where's Jacqueline? There it is." And you can see we now have some merch for it. NSF teaming up with Daily Hopper, which if you haven't seen their cartoons and anime and drawings, they're fantastic. But we teamed up with Daily Hopper to bring you this cool "Where's Jacqueline" design. Of course, this hopefully we'll be seeing more of these boosters returning. Also pretty impressive to have an orbital class booster launch, land, and then on only its third ever flight. So the second flight of this particular booster, third ever flight of New Glenn, to have it come back and land on the drone ship successfully. Pretty good for a first timer. So you can celebrate that all at shop.nasaspaceflight.com, along with some of the prints from the launch itself. Let me thank some people here as we get under 9 minutes to go until this GPS launch. IZK saying, do you prefer launches with SRBs or liquid fuel? Ooh. I mean, I think it depends. For me personally, like shuttle SRBs, yeah. The GEM 63s and 63XLs, they're okay. Especially on a Vulcan, I'd rather see the color of those methane engines like we see with New Glenn.
I've never. Oh boy, that's actually a really good question. I think personally, nothing beats Methalox by itself. I mean, a key example of that being New Glenn and Starship. Just the Methalox alone is already a very vibrant, like blue, pink, purple kind of hue, depending on where in the exhaust plume you are. But also on Vulcan, especially when you have the 2 SRB variant, and you can actually see both BE4s there on the Vulcan core booster. The combination of the SRBs and the methane is delicious. But I think overall, I think Methalox is probably my favorite, but also I have a really soft spot for the RS-68 on Delta IV because that is I think it was a very fuel-rich hydrolock setup, open cycle, with an ablative nozzle. So the exhaust was a very vibrant and bright orange. So, but I think methane and liquid oxygen or liquid engines in general have my heart. But SRBs are epic, no doubt.
It also set itself on fire at launch, which was pretty metal.
I still am waiting to see a Vulcan VC0 one of these days when it's with just a BE force and no solids. Like that would be an absolutely freaking epic thing to see.
Yes, especially given what New Glenn has got going
Yep.
with 7 of them.
Yep.
Bideford, hey, good to see you up at this hour. Saying, now done with work while I've enjoyed listening to you guys, so here's a little thank you for working into the night for all of us. Thank you for the $50 super chat, Bideford. Very, very much appreciate the generosity there. So as we now tick under 7 minutes till launch, they should be chilling down those 9 Merlin 1D engines. Like we talked about earlier with the line chill down, they are thermally conditioning the engines for what they are about to experience because you don't want to have super cold propellants and super hot engine meeting for the first time at that moment without preparing them thermally. So that is what we are seeing now. The other thing, Max, of course, no chill in the air right now. A little bit of wind, but how's the weather looking out there?
I mean, a bit breezy still. There is a bit of an annoying breeze coming from the northeast right now, but otherwise, we are seeing plenty of stars in the sky. Minimal clouds now. Actually, the number of clouds has actually decreased over time since we began the broadcast. But in terms of what the weather forecast was calling for from SLD 45, in terms of the cumulus and thick clouds rule, that is not a concern here at the launch site whatsoever. Lots of stars, and the moon is also set, so we are seeing a lot more of them than usual. But Sawyer, I think at this time I'm going to head off and get some cameras ready for launch itself, and I will check back in with you guys after first stage separation, and I may be around Miko or first stage landing. So thank you very much, everybody, and I will see y'all on the other side.
Sounds good, Max. Looking forward to talking with you after. You can see there a rare live look on the deck of Just Read the Instructions, which is the drone ship located downrange to the northeast for this particular flight, which is the direction that it will be going. And of course, you can see them already wetting the deck there with that little bit of water on it to try and ease the load on it once the booster comes down and, if all goes well, lands on it about 8 minutes after launch. So yes, that is the recovery vessel downrange today, is Just Read the Instructions, as this vehicle will be flying towards the northeast. So not one of those east or southeast trajectories, but this will be going northeasterly. And also downrange, by the way, is Bob, set to recover these fairing halves that you see on your screen, of which there are 2 of them, one flying for the second time, the other flying for the third time. You might also notice that gray strip there. So there's the black interstage on stage 1, and then on stage 2, there's that sort of gray stripe. That is part of the mission extension option that they have. So the mission extension stripe basically helps to keep the RP-1 warm enough as it gets into the higher parts of flight. So since this is going to medium Earth orbit, as opposed to Starlinks, which go into more of a low Earth orbit, so we're talking about a couple thousand kilometers in altitude versus a couple hundred kilometers in altitude. So it's a way to keep the RP-1 at the proper temperature so that an hour after launch, when they go to refire that engine again for second engine start 2, that all the propellants are at the proper temperatures that they need to be. Now, if you look underneath those fairing halves, in fact, you can see the clamps opening up underneath it as they begin to retract the strongback. That is that metallic structure that you see on the right side of your screen that not only rolls out Falcon 9 and lifts it vertical, but it also has a bunch of lines connecting to it. So those are data lines, power lines, thermal conditioning lines. All of that runs through that between the ground and the vehicle. So that will lean back 1.8 degrees. And you can see a little bit of tension there on those cables and attachment points. Those will throw all the way back at T0 and retract away as a way to try and prevent those lines from getting damaged. Of course, if something does happen, that's why they lean it back 1.8 degrees, so there's not as much lines and data cables and things that would be toasted if something were to happen on launch there. saves the transporter erector and allows it to continue to be the busiest launch pad in the world right now, which this is Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Again, on board the GPS-3 satellite. This is the final of the GPS-3 series going into medium Earth orbit. This will be the SV10, also known as GPS-3-8. The satellite itself is also named after Hedy Lamarr, who helped pioneer some of the technology in the early days that allowed for what is now Bluetooth and GPS and Wi-Fi signals. And for all of the Blazing Saddles fans out there, it is Hedy, not Hedley. Stage 1 LOX load is complete at this point. Coming up on 2 minutes to go until launch. So far, everything looking good. Another thing also on the second stage for this particular mission as well is the Freedom 250 logo, celebrating 250 years of the United States. The range is reporting green, so that means weather and any downrange airplane or boat activity are all good to go. Coming up now in 90 seconds here with this fully fueled Falcon 9. Next will be the gas line closeout. You can see some of that happening there on the transporter erector. That is purging out all of the lines that they have at the pad that have been used to fuel up this vehicle. And so that way there's nothing remaining in them when Falcon 9 lifts off, because you don't want any of these potential flammable gases still hanging out there when 9 engines ignite. Coming up now, minute 10 seconds. Once we hit that 60-second mark, that is when Falcon 9 will enter startup. That is when the onboard computers will take control of the countdown, and that should be happening now. That also means that the tanks will begin pressurizing to their final flight levels. Coming up next will be, hopefully, the go for launch from the launch director. That happens at about the 45-second mark. Of course, our cameras are a little bit ahead of the SpaceX feed, which has that latency, so it'll be a couple seconds before we get that official confirmation. And if all goes well, we should be about 30 seconds away from launch. T-minus 30 seconds. And launch director is go. So we are ready for launch in 20 seconds. Coming up next will be the activation of the Rainbirds, which is a water deluge system at the base of Falcon 9. That will be followed by TTEB, which is used to help ignite those 9 Merlin 1D engines, and hopefully liftoff. Should be coming up on that water deluge. There it is. Booster ignition. And liftoff of Falcon 9 and the final GPS-3 mission, and Hedy Lamarr on its way to space. Beautiful roar tonight. Falcon 9 now 1 minute into flight. So far, everything looking good. Coming up next will be Max Q, and that is when the maximum aerodynamic forces will be pushing against Falcon 9. And there we go. Usually when you see that trail, it is now going faster than the speed of sound, and it is passing through Max Q. So far good. 90 seconds into flight now. Absolutely gorgeous launch tonight. As it gets higher up in the atmosphere, you will start to see that plume expand as it gets into the thinner parts of the atmosphere. You'll also notice the color change as it goes more from that orange color to a bluish purple as it gets higher up. So coming up next will be 3 events in rapid succession starting about 35 seconds from now. First off will be MECO, or main engine cutoff, when those 9 Merlin engines will shut down. That'll be followed by stage separation, when the first and second stages will separate away from each other, and that will then be followed by SES1, or second engine start 1, when the Merlin vacuum engine on stage 2 will ignite for the first time of 2 on this mission, and that should be about 10 seconds away from all of that happening. There's that gorgeous blue color. And we should be coming up now on MECO, right on time. Next up will be stage separation. And we should see a green flash. And there it is. That is ignition of stage 2. You could see some of the plume there. In the plume, stage 1 using its thrusters there to orient itself. Absolutely gorgeous. Stage 2 now continuing on. Again, this going to medium Earth orbit, so a little bit higher than we're used to seeing on those Starlink launches. And in about 20 seconds or so, we should have the fairing halves separating away. One is an active half and the other is passive. So that means one has a pusher mechanism on it and the other just gets pushed away. Those will then make their way back down to Earth with some thrusters and parachutes before being recovered and hopefully flown again. We should be coming up on that now. Keep an eye out in the plume. You might be able to see them. And there you go. You can actually see some of them. There is that separation of those fairing halves. Again, Bob is the vessel located downrange to recover those. And those have now flown for 2 and 3 flights, respectively. Here's what it looks like on the SpaceX feed, which is a couple seconds behind ours. Beautiful. And there is the GPS-3 satellite now exposed to space. So far, everything continuing to look good 4 minutes into flight. Coming up next after this, about 6 minutes or so into flight, so about 2 minutes or so from now, will be the first stage entry burn. So we like to say that's fighting fire with fire, where it will start with a singular engine and then work its way up to 3 of those engines on the base of the booster, and it will create a sort of plume around it from the flames that will help it as it gets into the thicker parts of the atmosphere and to deal with some of that atmospheric heating. That, on this particular one, is a bit of a long burn. This one's about a 30-second, according to SpaceX, planned entry burn. A reminder again, this coming from a much steeper and higher trajectory than we're used to seeing for those Starlink missions, so that is why it's a bit of a longer burn. And same even with the ISS crew missions. Those are much shorter. That one, of course, going into a shallower orbit. So low Earth orbit versus this one going into medium Earth orbit a couple thousand kilometers up. And you can see there on the left side, the altitude is decreasing on stage 1, so it has passed apogee, or the highest point in its trajectory. So now the speed will be going up and the altitude will be going down. Meanwhile, you can see on the bottom right there, stage 2 continuing its burn. Everything looking good so far. 154 kilometers in altitude, coming up on about 13,000 kilometers per hour. And again, we call that SES1, or second engine start 1, because that is the first of 2 burns that it will be doing this evening. So this first one will last for about 8 minutes. And then at about 1 hour and 3 minutes into flight, it will relight one more time for an approximately 40-second burn. And that will be followed about 20 minutes after that by the deployment of that GPS satellite, which again, that is GPS III-8, also known as Space Vehicle 10, also known as Hedy Lamarr. We should be coming up now on that entry burn. Now 75 kilometers up. Just read the instructions, is located downrange, northeast of where it took off from, ready for this booster to land on it. And there we go. You could see there is engine ignition. There's the single engine. And then once you see that sort of rectangular shape, that means that the 3 engines are lighting up in that 1-3-1 burn. So that means it will drop back down to a single engine before shutting down after this. Then this one longer than we're used to seeing, about 30 seconds or so per the timeline provided by SpaceX here. There we go, down to a single engine and shut down. You could also see those grid fins when we had that view as well. Those starting to encounter the plasma now as it gets into the thicker parts of the atmosphere. Not doing much at the moment, but as it does get to the thicker parts, especially right before landing, we will see those start maneuvering and helping to steer Falcon 9 towards the deck of the drone ship. Just read the instructions. Coming up now on about a minute left of this burn here on stage 2. And this is one where we should see SECO 1 or second engine cutoff 1 happen prior to the commencement of the landing burn by a couple seconds. They'll be close to each other. So now 7.5 minutes into flight. First stage now only 12 kilometers in altitude. Stage 2 now approaching 23,000 kilometers in altitude and about 170 kilometers in altitude. Or excuse me, 23,000 at speed, 168 currently in altitude. So we're going to keep an eye out now in the next 10 seconds or so for SECO, second engine cutoff. And we should be seeing that any second here. Again, the times they give us are approximate. Of course, based off of actual trajectory data is when we see it. And there we go. There is SECO, second engine cutoff. And we have ignition of the single engine for landing here on the booster. You see those grid fins doing their work. On the right, the live view from the deck of the drone ship. You can see it's already wet and ready for the booster to land on it. Coming up next will be that landing leg deploy. The grid fins will lock in place, landing leg deploy, and touchdown! The booster now completing its 7th flight, earning the -8, so B1095. Now, the record holder for the most consecutive landings on the same drone ship. Active record there, with 7 of its 7 landings all happening on Just Read the Instructions. A beautiful launch. Everything looked great there. Of course, as mentioned, that is just the first of 2 burns. This second stage will have another burn to do. That's scheduled for about 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 31 seconds after launch. That is a 37-second burn, if my math is correct here. And then that will be followed at T plus 1 hour, 29 minutes, and 19 seconds, by the deploy of the satellite. Of course, we are working on pulling some of those replays. You saw we had some amazing views tonight. I don't know if we have Max back in the field to get his reaction to tonight. Hopefully we'll get the field team and get their commentary here momentarily. But boy, that was a beautiful launch. All the numbers looking good at this point. Great stuff. Absolutely great stuff. And yeah, people saying that seems like a very loud one tonight. Part of it is also we did have that microphone in a closer vantage point than we're used to having. That one over on the Space Force side, which we appreciate the U.S. Space Force for allowing us the opportunity for certain missions to roll out there, including this one, and have some spectacular views. And be able to place those microphones a lot closer, and of course getting those dual views there from the Space Force side as well as from the Kennedy Space Center side. Let me take a moment to thank some people here. Flippers saying happy day of birth Oz Darky with a $5 super chat. Yeah, happy birthday Oz_Darky. And then 2 Sheds gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Thank you very much for that. We appreciate it. Oh boy. It's been a while since we've seen some action over at Slick 40. And of course, the next launch of SpaceX's here from the East Coast is scheduled to be from 39A, and that is Falcon Heavy with Viasat. And that is set for, as of now, the 27th of April. Again, you can keep up to date with when all of these launches are happening and everything over on the Next Spaceflight app and nextspaceflight.com, so that way you always know when the launches are happening all around the world, including even on the other coast. And Can't forget Virginia, can't forget over in Mahia, and all the other launch sites. So you should always check it out. There's even a widget that you can place on your phone screen that will let you know when the next launch in the world is happening and get notifications day before, hour before, and 10 minutes before launch. Sounds like our team is working on photos here and video, which again, we are working on pulling those replays. As soon as we have those, we will let you know. And of course, you will see them on screen. And now you can see there as it passes over towards the daylight side of Earth. Of course, here in Florida, where it launched from, it is currently 3:06 a.m., so quite dark, going towards the northeast. And as it goes that way, passing the terminator line where it goes from night to day. And you can see that light now hitting the Merlin vacuum engine up there on stage 2, and that mylar blanket kind of puffy thing that you see there. That is where we are at this point so far in flight. Stick around, folks. Promise the views are going to be absolutely worth it, especially those close-up ones.
Sawyer.
There you are. I was wondering where you were.
I'm here. Apologies for the longer delay than usual, folks. I was just prepping a photo to share on stream, hopefully very soon. I just sent it in the back channel. Yeah, gorgeous launch tonight. The wind did not die down this sound at all, especially from our perspective. I can't imagine how it was on Dee's side over on the Space Force. But yeah, it was wonderful here. It was absolutely beautiful. Clear skies. I tried getting the entry burn off in the distance, but we must have lost it in a distant cloud as I only saw the plume very, very briefly. But alas, it was still a very good track, a very good night to see Falcon 9 off into space.
Absolutely. And again, we had the sound from the Space Force side. Over on your side, though, did we get the VAB squeal?
I'm gonna be honest. I didn't pay attention. I think the wind was too loud in my ear to really hear it. Normally, it's very prominent. The angle from pad 40 to the VAB and from our perspective, where we normally film pad 40 from, we hear it every single time. And the only times we don't is when the wind is either muffling the sound or actually I think that's about it. So I have no doubt it's there in the audio. Hopefully we can hear it in the replay. But the wind was very loud in my ear tonight, though. That has to be said.
Absolutely. And also an interesting note as we see it passing the Terminator line there. SpaceX noting in their most recent X post in regards to the landing, calling it the final planned Falcon mission for this drone ship. And my cat Jake there meowing in agreement. Wow.
What? Is there an announcement in this?
Yeah, it says there on X, SpaceX posting Falcon 9 lands on Just Read the Instructions, which is the last planned Falcon mission for this drone ship. Going on to add underneath it, after 156 successful Falcon 9 landings, Just Read the Instructions will be fully dedicated to support Starship operations going forward.
Oh my goodness.
There's an additional post, Jay, that I posted there. If you want to put that one up as well, I know doing a bunch of things there in the back. There it is. Yeah.
Holy cow. Wow.
Well, that's news, folks. Breaking
literally
at the beginning of the show. Very appropriate now.
Jay, where's that breaking news stinger that we need it again?
Yeah. So there we go.
Wow.
Actual breaking news. 156 successful landings. This one marking the final one. And again, that'll be the end of this booster streak of 7 landings, all on Just Read the Instructions, too. Because it's apparently the last one ever now. And Just Read the Instructions only with 1 failure in its entire career. That's pretty impressive. At least landing failure. Of course, there's things that happen after it lands. But, wow. That's, yeah. Sorry, wasn't expecting that, folks. That was news to all of us here.
I mean, so when they say it's going to support Starship, what does that mean by supporting Starship? Obviously, Starship does not have landing legs. It cannot land on a drone ship, at least as it is currently configured. What I presume that is going to mean is it is going to aid in shipping hardware from Starbase to Florida, at least initially. There is a lot of real estate on board. Just read the instructions in terms of surface area. And they're going to need a lot of it to ship boosters and ships. They currently have you'll thank me later, which will be converted also for hardware transportation from Starbase to Florida. But goodness me, that was a bit of a bombshell. Was not
Yeah.
expecting that. So what exactly does this mean for Falcon launch cadence? Well, it's probably going to go down as much as it may be weird to say. Because at this point, at least here on the East Coast, they will only have a shortfall of gravitas to support missions of this sort, but they also have LZ40 and LZ2 if they wanted to bring those Falcon 9 cores back. So either they're going to be limited to, if they want to keep flying Starlink missions like they have been, or at least as much as they can, while having the boosters still land out at sea, they are going to be limited by how quickly that they can turn around a shortfall of gravitas. On contrary to that, though, if they want to reduce the number of satellites they want to fly and bring the booster back to LZ40 every single time, that may help speed up cadence there as well, assuming they need it. But I don't even I don't even know like what to say to that.
And don't forget, they're down to a single pad too on the East Coast, so they don't have 39A for Starlinks anymore. That's just for Falcon Heavy. They don't have they won't have just read the instructions anymore. It'll just be a shortfall of gravitas. Huh. Wow. Yeah, I think when we get to the end of your Ryan's Game Show version 3, our guesses are going to be a little off now. And also,
I would say so.
Where are we at with Starship at the Cape? We haven't seen a booster arrive yet.
Yeah, there's still a bit of work left to do over at 39A before it is ready to support a launch of any sort. Hangar X or the Roberts Road facility is still under construction. The Gigabay over there is about at its full height, if not fully, or not at its full. Blah. It is at its full height in a technicality, but it's the entirety of the building is not at the same height. They're still working on some bits there, but it is looking to be ready to at least support maybe vehicle sheltering for those that are being shipped here from Starbase right away. Of course, they can't construct them here yet because Star Factory 2.0, as we call it, is not even breaking ground yet, and that is scheduled to be about 1.5 times the size of the Star Factory in Starbase. And of course, that is where all the barrels and small bits of hardware are assembled and made to actually build these Starship vehicles, which of course is what Gigabay is for, able to support up to 24 vehicles at the same time. The pad over at 39A is about 6 months behind that of Pad 2 in Starbase, and work is ongoing in terms of breaking ground and building the base structures for the launch and catch towers over at Space Launch Complex 37, which will eventually become the main hub of Starship activity here on the Space Coast of Florida. So still a bit off from seeing regular Starship cadence here. I mean, we haven't even seen our first one yet, although we are hopefully aiming to see one by the end of this year, at least one. Well, probably just one. But we are still waiting to see what vehicles are going to be shipped here and when that is going to be.
This is going to be a very interesting flame trench between New Glenn's GS2 issue, some OIG reports about Artemis spacesuits, and now the bombshell that just read the instructions is officially retired from Falcon flights and will now be switching to Starship operations.
So in other words, we're not going to want to miss this booster return.
No, that's
sad, man. That's the end of an era. Like, this is kind of the same feeling that we got when, of course, I Still Love You was moved over to Vandenberg, or the West Coast, I should say, because it isn't at Vandenberg. It's at Long Beach, but still.
Wow,
man.
I mean, this is going to be a very interesting flame trench, and I mean, I know we'll have our team out there waiting for the return of Jacqueline. Where's Jacqueline? It will be there, just like it says on the merch, although that the new merch says there it is.
Where's Just Read the Instructions? It's gone.
Oh no. This is normally a Friday at 6 p.m. drop, not a Tuesday at 3 a.m. Eastern drop.
Yeah, dude, for real. Like, this is some news to be breaking at 3 o'clock in the freaking morning on a Tuesday.
Well, while we try and process this, let's check out this replay here, which has some of the audio on it. I believe this one has the audio, if Jay is telling me correctly. It is quite a sound tonight. I love how you can see the glow of the light on the water. And then as it gets higher, it just dims and dims.
Yeah, it's always special watching from this perspective for Pad 40. I mean, this is literally as close as the press will ever get to a launch pad, I think. Especially for Falcon, I think. At this point, from this vantage point to Pad 40, it's about 2.2 miles.
Yeah. By the way, someone pointing out in the in chat that now it'll have to be called I read the instructions.
Wow, yes.
Oh man, and this is the view from the KSC side, Max, where you were.
I mean, Didi, this one should have audio as well, I think.
This one had this cool little like rainbow effect as the light from the engines as it went up. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful still.
Yeah, whenever it travels northeast from Pad 40, from KSC, we always have that great side-on perspective, so it's always a treat watching it go up.
And if all goes well, in about 6 days, we should have 3 of these strapped together.
Sawyer, you know what this means?
What?
There's a possibility that we see Just Read the Instructions with B1095 and Jacqueline, and Never Tell Me the Odds come in at relatively the same time.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
Jerry,
gosh.
get the drone. Jerry, get the drone. Oh boy. Which someone asked with the super chat here, any word on Jacqueline coming into port time?
Not yet, as far as we can see. Just from the marine traffic app, I don't think they have set Port Canaveral as their destination as of yet. That could have changed. I didn't check that, or I haven't checked that since this afternoon. But I could be off on that. But it usually they like Blue has no need to really rush in. Like SpaceX has to with Falcon normally, just to keep up with the cadence and sending them in and back out again and getting everything turned back around again. So normally it can take anywhere from like 4 to 6 days, I want to say, for Blue. I want to say they'll be in by the end of the week. But for Falcon, normally it's around 2.5 days now, given how quickly they are able to get back. But yeah, I think I would like to think that they'll be in at the same time. But I think Falcon will still get here first. Like, that's just what we're used to.
Well, there's no rush on this one either, because they don't need just read the instructions for anything.
You know what? You're not wrong.
Yeah, the next Starlink mission after the next mission that will use a drone ship isn't until, as of now, May 1st. And that's Starlink 1038. Of course, before that will be Viasat, of which those will be LZ2 and LZ40, and the core stage is expended. Blake P saying on SpaceX livestream, they said, just read the instructions. I get my final chance to say it. JRTI will be used for Starship operations here on out. Same job as You'll Thank Me Later, right? I don't know what the purpose will be. We'll see if it ends up being the same thing as a transport ship, or if it eventually ends up working somehow for recovery operations. And Mr.
Can you imagine a super heavy booster with landing legs?
I mean, all the SNs for the upper part, at least.
What?
The SN8, SN10, SN15.
No, a super heavy booster, brother.
I know. I'm saying at least we've had a tease of what it might look like.
I don't know, actually.
Or would it be that they catch the booster to start and land the ship, which would make no sense? But I guess I don't know. I'm not SpaceX.
Point to point is becoming real, folks.
Oh no, Chris is already in chat. Don't get him excited. And Fluffy saying, good thing we have the West Coast to take up the East Coast slack. Hey, how many drone ships do you have out there?
And y'all can't fly people still, so get on our level.
Exactly. And we can do equatorial, we can do low, medium, high Earth orbit, and we can do polar.
Still polar launch corridor. Oh, excuse me. Good grief.
Yeah, just saying. Well, that was a spectacular launch tonight. Of course, there's still more to this mission, which you'll be able to follow on all the NSF socials. Facebook, Instagram, X, Threads, TikTok, Blue Sky. We continue to follow it on all the social channels, so you'll know when the satellite gets deployed, and hopefully all goes well with this second stage all the way to deploy. So you're going to have to check the socials and keep an eye on that. Max, thank you for joining me here on commentary tonight.
It has been a bit of a bombshell, but it's been a weird night. But it has been a pleasure, as always, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us and coming to hang out with us this evening, or this morning, I should say. Now, technically being almost 3:30 a.m. local. It is fun as always. It is always a treat to see Falcon 9 up and away, and we hope to see y'all again soon.
Absolutely. We had DYs over on the Space Force side providing views for us as well. And then behind the scenes, pushing the buttons, pulling the levers tonight, and using the breaking news stinger, turns out properly, not knowing that there would be breaking news on this stream, was Jay Keegan. By the way, Fluffy saying, I live in Montana. We get nothing. Who's this talking about all the West Coast best? Nope. See? I don't know. The Wyoming coast gets more than that.
I was going to say the Montana coast, too.
Anyway, I'm Sawyer Rosenstein. I have been your host for this evening/morning's launch/breaking news extravaganza here. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, we'll be talking a lot about this on the Flame Trench Friday, 5 Eastern. But so, if you're not subscribed, subscribe now so that way you know and we can all join in on the crazy conversation. Again, thank you everybody for joining us, and we will see you all in the next one.
And here we go.
There's the W. Here's ignition.
Doubling up.
Did it just do a Kerbal?
Back to the moon and beyond.
Put that in the big bag, Jingle.
Back at home, we all have a lot of work to do, but from here, that sure looks like a perfect flow.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
We did have an observation.
343 unfolds to go.
It's orange!
Water towers fly!
Bingo! Right in the center. Where's Jacqueline? There it is!
That was surreal.
That's not what we want to see.
No!
Oh my god.
Yikes. You bet. We don't need any more of these.